joined as always by my co-host, Ben Anderson. We are here recapping week 10 in the ACC, and I think there is one headline at the ACC level and at the national level, which we will get to in just a second. Ben, how are we doing?
You know what? We got a lot to cover in this week 10 ACC slate. The good, the bad, the ugly. Can't wait to get into it.
Yes, and we will get into it, like I said, in just a second. First off, just wanted to talk to you guys about a special offer that we have from Takeover Sports Network, and that is Prize Picks, who has an offer in which new users that deposit and use the promo code TAKEOVER, as you can see on the bottom left of your screen, will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the fun, easy way to play daily fantasy. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you could win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has a ton of stats to choose from and offers any sport you could think of. Prize Picks also allows mixed sport entries. So if you're looking for a fun, easy way to play daily fantasy, be sure to check out Prize Picks and don't forget to use the promo code TAKEOVER so they know we sent you. Once again, that is Prize Picks, and the promo code is TAKEOVER. So, Ben, you said it. We are going to start with the headliner, and honestly, quite a shocker here. Notre Dame 35, Clemson 14.
Yeah, sure. And let's start off with the game. I think both you and I are going to have the same takeaways from this game. Clemson was dominated in all 3 phases. They got a pump blocked in return for a touchdown. They threw a pick 6 along with multiple interceptions offensively, and then defensively they allowed Notre Dame just to run straight down their throats, which out of all the ways you would think Notre Dame would win this game, that's probably not one of them. When you can think of Clemson, I think the first thing you think of in terms of their strength is their D-line. And that simply just wasn't necessarily the case in this game. Really just a thorough beat down by the Fighting Irish, who are now ranked in the AP poll. Somehow they slipped in, shockingly. I don't know how that works. The big story is here that the ACC can't survive this from a playoff perspective, because not only does this knock Clemson out, Clemson's not coming back from this. I think the college football playoff would take Oregon over Clemson at this point. Just if they both win out, I think they'd rather take a team that lost 49-3 to Georgia than they would 35-14 to Clemson. But it also really hurts North Carolina's chances as well, considering that if I think they had won out the Tar Heels and beat a undefeated Clemson in the ACC championship, they would have had a stronger case for making the playoff. But now, not so sure about that. Really, just a devastating loss.
It was very bad. So first off, as far as the gameplay was concerned, I mean, we'll start with the Clemson offense. DJU was bad, but I also thought they just did not set him up for success. The play calling was so conservative. It was crazy to me how Dabo, before the week started, was what he's been doing the entire year, raving about how much he trusts DJ. DJ's his guy. He's going to let him loose. And he didn't let him loose at all. I mean, it was a lot of run plays, a lot of conservative passes, swing routes, flats, they didn't let him throw the ball downfield. And then eventually, once he did, I mean, it didn't really go well for him. They put in Klubnik for a play, and that turned into a pick. So it's not like that would have worked out any better. So
they also put in Klubnik at his own 7-yard line. So I'm not sure what they expected from that. I don't think that's necessarily fair to the backup quarterback in that situation. But
talk about into the fire, right? That's crazy. Notre Dame is now 3-0 against the ACC. I mean, they've kind of done it the same way in all 3 games, offensively, run it down their throats. And I guess we just did not realize to the extent that even though the coaching has not been, I guess, as good for Notre Dame this year, they're still a super talented team. Marcus Freeman got the job for a reason, and it was just they had a little bit of growing pains. Now,
I was going to say they most definitely are, but I do think this is more about Clemson than it is about Notre Dame. Clemson's just good. They're not elite. That's the end of the story, I think. What do you think?
No, I do agree. Honestly, if I'm ranking the top 10 here, even if we're going based off of resume, but I think actually the Takeover Sports Network. It might have been Josh. Somebody from the Big Ten show put out their top 10. I don't think Clemson was part of it at all. And like I think it's a reasonable case you can make. What do you think?
Absolutely. Because here's the thing. Let's consider the 3 Pac-12 teams, right? We have Oregon, USC, and UCLA all with 1 loss. They're all 8-1. Who are you taking? Are you taking any of them to lose to Clemson?
Well,
Maybe UCLA?
This was Clemson's marquee at a conference game.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. And if none of those 3 you think would lose to Clemson, then Clemson can't be ranked in the top 10 because you just run out of spots.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, it's not just the fact that they lost this game; it's the fact that they got absolutely blown out.
Yeah.
But I think the last thing I want to talk about is the ACC championship game because we were kind of assuming, Clemson's going to roll in there. They're going to be 10, 12, 14-point favorites. It's probably going to be UNC. It's almost like 95% chance at this point it's going to be UNC. They almost clinched it this weekend, which we'll get to later. But now I think it gets a little interesting. Like that's going to be a highly anticipated ACC championship game, and I could see it going either way.
Yeah, and there's also no guarantee that Clemson doesn't lose another game before then as well. It's not unfathomable that they lose to either Louisville or South Carolina.
Just checking out.
That wouldn't be crazy to me. So it makes for a more interesting conference overall, even if it dilutes the prominence nationally of the conference. So it's a give or take, definitely.
Yeah, kind of like last year. Like I had the most fun watching ACC football, and it ended up being Penn Wake in the championship, and that was kind of cool, even though they got no respect nationally.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to some of the other games, though. So we're going to go chronologically the rest of the way. Let's start. This was on Friday night. Duke and Boston College. Congratulations to the Duke Blue Devils, who are now bowl eligible at 6-3 with a 38-31 victory over BC.
With room to spare. Mike Elko, given the other happenings around the conference, I think has pretty clearly put himself in first for the Coach of the Year race. Who else are you gonna throw in there? I mean, Dabo just lost. Syracuse has kind of gone off the rails. We'll get to them later in the show, but those were the 3 guys that we sort of talked about a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Coach of the Year, and Mike Elko is really the only one left standing. Duke was in control this entire game. Boston College scored. They looked the best offensively that they have all season with the new quarterback in Emmett Morehead, but it never felt like Duke was necessarily gonna lose this game. So really, they beat a team that they should have, and now they're bowl eligible in year 1. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the Coach of the Year discussion goes, I could still see a world in which they hand it to an 11-1 and 10-2 Mac Brown UNC team.
Yeah. Yes. UNC is such a weird team. We'll get to them later, but UNC is a very – you are correct, though. I overlooked Mac Brown.
But – I mean, yeah, that's Duke. For Boston College, Moorhead was the starting quarterback. It was Emmett Morehead. He went 27 of 45, 330 yards and 4 touchdowns. Got sacked a bunch of times. But that is the best Boston College quarterback performance we have seen all year. What's your take on this? Because first off, BC lost this game. So it's – I mean, you could call it a moral victory, but you shouldn't be looking for moral victories in year 3 of a coaching era against Duke. Even if it's a better Duke. But what's your thoughts on the whole situation with Moorhead? Do you think things would have gone very differently? I personally think he should have been the starter for a while, but it wouldn't have changed the trajectory of the season.
I think that had Emmett Morehead been the starter this entire season, Boston College would still have the exact same record. So yeah. I'm not mad that it took this long, but now that you've opened this can of worms, then you can't really close it up, right? Morehead's got to be the starter for the rest of the season, and it'll be interesting to see if they can pick off a team or two. The fact that Louisville lost to Boston College remains confounding. That's the craziest result of the entire season, in my opinion. Yeah. But I guess Boston College still has a chance to turn it around in this last 3 games, but again, like you said, year 3, moral victory against Duke. That's not how you want to go.
No. And we'll get to Louisville, but we were alluding to UNC a little bit. So you ready to move on to that one?
I'm good. I'm good with that. Yep.
Yeah. So this one also was a noon one, this one, but the first noon one, I should say. 31-28, UNC won. Here's my quick synopsis of this, quick takeaway. I thought UVA played well enough to win this game, and game management disallowed them to win it. And at the same time, as a UVA fan, it's just I've grown to expect it, and I've grown numb to it. What about you?
Yeah, it was incredibly frustrating to watch this game, especially in the first half. Now, let me preface this by saying it was one of the most incredible drives I've ever seen to open a game, given the fact that Dontavion Wicks, Lavelle Davis, Keaton Thompson, Paris Jones are all out of this game for undisclosed reasons. That's basically Virginia's entire skill position core right there outside of Billy Kemp. And this is a team that has already struggled to score the ball. They didn't cross the goal line against Miami last week. And what do they do against North Carolina? Drive it down for a touchdown. And frankly, they should have been up at halftime of this game. Brennan Armstrong pooch punted on a 4th and 5, which I disagreed with. It was a net of like 12 yards, and it's from the own 32. You might as well just go at that point.
That was the second time on the pooch punt. The announcers literally called it when they saw Brennan Armstrong backing up. They're like, "It's the pooch punt play," and I'm like, thinking like, "Yep, that's the pooch punt play."
Yeah, and it's just like, man, it just felt like you had a couple of missed opportunities to own the momentum if you're Virginia in the first half, and then you let North Carolina hang around. Drake May is going to make you pay. Josh Downs had a good game as well. I don't think Drake May had a fantastic game. He ended up with pretty good numbers, but there were a few misses that I saw that were pretty blatant. He did have a bad drop touchdown by one of his receivers in the first half. It was miserable to watch for that. But he didn't have an amazing game, but he did enough to get UNC the win. And I think that's sort of the story of the year for North Carolina.
You know who did have a great game? Josh Downs.
Yeah.
15 for 166 and a touchdown. He has actually had more 100-yard games this year than non-100-yard games, which is very impressive as a receiver. And yeah, so 15 for 166 for Josh Downs. The second leading receiver, Antoine Green, had 3 for 33. So that was the entire offense. I mean, UVA could not cover Josh Downs. And then we just talk about the UNC formula, which keeps working, and I think at this point it's pretty sustainable. I mean, I thought Syracuse's formula was sustainable too, to be fair. So you can't take my word for it too much, but I think we've even had a larger sample size with UNC. Their formula is sustainable for now against the ACC teams, right?
Well, I was going to say, it's sustainable against the teams they play.
That's why I said for now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Like, the way they've been winning games can get them to 11-1.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Play slightly better offensively than your defense is bad. That's the way I put it. So
wouldn't have it any other way in the ACC Coastal, though, would we?
Of course. And it's just crazy. I mean, we talked about last week. We don't have to get into it again, but just has UNC improved that much, or has everybody else just gone down? Well, UNC's taken advantage nonetheless. Two teams that have gone down, or one team that's gone down, one team that stayed down, I should say. Let's get to this one, and congratulations to Georgia Tech. You guys got another victory. And, you know, I guess besides just it feels good to win, the one positive you could say about Georgia Tech winning games is it makes the job look a little bit more doable for the coaching carousel every time you win a game.
Yeah, absolutely. This was important, especially with their true freshman quarterback, Zach Pyron. Like, having him in the fold and him showing that there's something there at least, I think was really important for this game. But I want to talk about the Hokies real quick. This was excruciating, this final few minutes for Virginia Tech. They were up 27-16, and then their final 5 possessions were a missed field goal, a fumble, an interception, a punt, and a fumble. End of game.
Yep.
Like, You can't. That's the worst way to lose a game. You lose by 1. What do you think about that, Dan?
I mean, I've grown to expect it from Virginia Tech. I'm not shocked about it at all. They kind of did a very similar thing against NC State too. And I mean, Grant Wells was bad again. Defensive breakdowns were kind of there. Like their defense will make like a few good plays and then they'll just completely break down. That's the Virginia Tech defense right there. So, yeah, it's what you've grown to expect. And it's difficult because obviously the results are not there and you expect the results to not be there when you're completely tearing down and rebuilding a program. But is the process there? And that's the real question because that's what's going to continue into the future with Brent Price, their head coach.
2-7, man. That's just it's jarring to see that number next to Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
really. That's like pre-Beamer stuff. That's crazy.
But hey, Zach Pyron can make any throw on the field, and he's got some legs, so that's pretty good.
Good pickup, good win by the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah. All right, Pitt and Syracuse. This one, an old school rivalry game, which, I mean, there was not a lot of scoring, but Pitt takes down Syracuse to completely, I guess, end that whole Syracuse bandwagon thing because they're out of the top 25. They've lost now another game consecutively, and 6-3 after 6-0.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Pat Narduzzi wouldn't want it any other way. This is right up his alley in terms of game flow, game style. Garrett Schrader didn't play in this game for Syracuse, so Pitt was able to sell out on the run, and Sean Tucker just couldn't get anything going on the ground. Not a good recipe for success overall if you're trying to beat Pitt. Israel Abanikanda was not playing for the Panthers either, so really, even if you want to talk about all the injuries Syracuse has, Pitt was without their best player and still managed to muck this game up and come out with a win, I guess. It's just this is exactly what Pitt wants to do, and Syracuse, unfortunately, I think their time is up in the spotlight. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I wonder how it now continues for Syracuse. If it just turns into a complete implosion and they end like 7-5, or they could, win a couple more games and then win a bowl game and turn it into an 8-win season still. Like, that's still very much to be seen. But, I mean, yes, Garrett Schrader did not play, but I'll let you chime in on this too. I don't think Syracuse would have won if Garrett Schrader did play, and I think you kind of alluded to the fact that that's true, right?
Yeah. No, I said it gives context to the game, and especially it gives context to Sean Tucker's performance. But even if Garrett Schrader was the starting quarterback, it might have been 19-12 instead of 19.
Yeah, like there were a few instances where there were some throws at open receivers that, like, okay, any competent quarterback makes this throw. But Pitt's defensive line just dominated in such a way that Garrett Schrader's not like the greatest quarterback in the world. Like, okay, fine, you have like Drake May back there, or like, Sam Hartman on a good day, then maybe, things would have gone differently. But I don't think the drop off is so much. Just the way Pitt's defensive line played. This was your prototypical Pitt defensive line performance.
Absolutely.
And it's looking like that. I mean, I don't think Pitt fans are even confident enough to say it, but it's looking like that 6-6, 7-5 Pat Narduzzi team.
Good for them. It's better than 4-8.
I said it. Yeah, Pat Narduzzi is good for a couple 6-6, 7-5 without anybody complaining, just because he already won the ACC championship.
Absolutely.
Next up on the list, this was a night game, the first of the night ones. Louisville Cardinals. Okay, I think it's time. I keep disrespecting them. I keep saying, this is going to be a Scott Satterfield letdown loss. And they keep getting it done. This is now 4 straight for Louisville. They got it done against what I think is a good team in JMU, especially a good defensive team. And they won 34-10. They pulled away and really, really took care of business.
Yeah, this game was tied 10-10 at halftime, but in the third and fourth quarters, Louisville put its foot down, and they beat a good JMU team. Like you said, they showed like consistently complete games. over time for the first time, I feel like in forever when we're talking about Louisville. I think this is the coldest Satterfield seat has ever been during his time here as a Cardinal. So that's
another letdown loss.
Well, I'm sorry.
Time for a letdown loss then.
Well, no, we're gonna make it through. We're gonna make it through this time. I'm a believer in Louisville now. It's scary to say, I know, and I think they're not going to win out. I don't think. I think they're probably going to take one more loss, but that's still a successful season. That's still an 8-4 season, and I think that especially with how it began, starting 0-3 in conference play, this should be considered a success for Louisville. Yeah, good things are happening with Scott Satterfield's squad. What do you think, Dan?
Honestly, so I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. They go at Clemson, they go versus NC State, they go at Kentucky.
Okay, maybe more than one loss, but
no. But my point is, you know what? Honestly, screw the Clemson game, screw the NC State game. Like, you could win or lose that game, but as long as you look respectable, you know what's going to define this year for Scott Satterfield and whether he's really showed improvement?
If he beats Kentucky.
Yes, at Kentucky.
Yeah. This is the day. This is the year to get Kentucky, I think.
Yeah. They can't – at least don't get blown out like they keep doing.
Absolutely.
That would be bad. But I don't know. The defense has been just night and day from the every other year of the Scott Satterfield era, and this was their most well-rounded offensive performance. Not daunting numbers, but Lee Cunningham threw the ball well, ran the ball well, running backs ran the ball well. Like, just an all-around solid performance for Louisville. So I'm glad to say.
Yeah, pleasant. It's so pleasant to hear this, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad this is happening for the Cardinals.
All right, two more. So we got Florida State and Miami. Oh, boy. Because I can't believe I was expecting, it's the rivalry element, you know. This game will be close. It'll be a dogfight. Florida State's a better team, they'll win. That was my pregame prediction. And you know what happens? Well, Florida State wins 45-3. Clearly, these two programs are in completely different stages.
Man, I've said this before. I think I said it after last week's game for Miami. Yes, we definitely overrated Mario Cristobal's ability to make this into a good, potentially coastal winning team in the preseason. But even so, Miami should never be this bad. This was a horrendous watch if you're a Hurricanes fan. Even at home, this was uncompetitive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What else can he say about this game? Florida State looked great, but Miami was just horrendous.
Did Florida State even look great, or were they just like the competent team on the field and just let Miami make mistake after mistake and just took advantage of it? I didn't think they looked great.
I think if you beat a team by 42, you get to say you look great no matter how you actually played.
I guess, but like I think we both agree that it was more Miami being bad than Florida State being good.
Yes, Yes, you're correct.
Good teams take advantage of that and win 45-3 and don't take it into quadruple overtime and then losing. Like, that's what a bad team would do against Miami. But this was a good team, and they won 45-3. So,
yeah. Hey, win over LSU. Florida. I thought about this. But if Florida State had won just one of those three games that they lost in a row to Clemson, Wake, and NC State, I think they would be a top 20 team, right? And I think they probably are closer to that than they are to being unranked from like a pure like talent perspective and a pure are they good perspective, not resume. I think they are closer to a top 20 team than most people realize.
Yeah, I think, man, if they had beaten Clemson, the ACC championship would be a lot more interesting, the Atlantic race, but they didn't. So
yeah.
And that was if I remember correctly, the most convincing of their losses of those games, right?
Yeah, yes, you're correct.
Okay. All right. Well, this was your classic, like, good ACC game, not like nationally relevant, but just two good ACC teams. NC State and Wake Forest, pretty much the exact opposite way I would have expected. It was relatively respectable, yet NC State won 30-21. I mean, do you think like this just has cemented Dave Dorian as a coach? Because like NC State fans were giving him a little bit of doubt, and I wasn't really having it then, but I'm most certainly not having it now. He just certainly just knows how to coach, and it doesn't matter what you deal him. Deal him your star quarterback getting hurt. What happens? Beats a very good team.
Yeah, I was wholly impressed with the Wolfpack. I mean, we always knew they were going to have a good defense, and they sort of flummoxed Sam Hartman throughout the day. But having a guy like MJ Morris on tap, that's coaching, that's recruiting, that's program building right there, in my opinion. Like being able to survive your starting quarterback going down with an injury for the season, that goes deeper than a day-to-day result on the field. And Dave Doran has proved time and again that he is very good at building good teams. Mm-hmm. So, and this win just encapsulates it all. On the Wake Forest side, can we be a little concerned about Sam Hartman now?
Yeah.
Like he threw 3 picks, and I know we had talked about this coming into the season. Oh, Sam Hartman's great, but he does turn the ball over, and it's sort of flared up at the worst times. What do you think about that, Dan?
No, because I've seen like Sam Hartman have like a half or like even a full game every once in a while where he'll just like get very careless with the ball. I can think of like, that third and part of the fourth quarter of the ACC championship game last year, or like their bowl game against Wisconsin a few years ago. Like for the most part, he's a very good quarterback. Occasionally he gets careless, but this has been a sustained stretch of time now. He's kind of, and something's up. I'm not sure what, but credit to the NC State defense for doing this to him. But I think he's gotten very careless with the ball, and this is the most sustained I've seen it happen, I think, over the course of his entire career.
Yeah, definitely. Wake Forest has fallen off. Sad to say, but they've fallen off. I thought they were the second best team in the conference. They're clearly not the second best team in the conference. And yeah, there's not much to say other than that. Great win for NC State. They need this one at home. It was impressive to see them beat a team that we wouldn't have been mad at NC State had they lost this game. I didn't think NC State was going to win this game, but they did.
Neither.
You know what I mean? So that's like, it's definitely proved something in my mind. Arguably the best win for any ACC team this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Wake Forest ends with 3 toss-up games, I feel. I mean, you can put them against a lot of the conference. You can put any 2 ACC teams together, and the great thing is it's probably a toss-up game for the most part. But Wake Forest plays versus North Carolina, versus Syracuse, and at Duke. I feel like all 3 of those are toss-ups. And, they'll probably end like 7-5-ish, maybe 8-4. But I think I don't have a problem with that. Like, not as a Wake fan, but as a Wake spectator. I think just the last couple of years, the last year and a half-ish, we've just raised our expectations so high. But even like if they go 7-5, 8-4, that's still a good job by Dave Clawson given what he's dealt.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The one caveat I would say is that because they return so much, especially on offense, you might expect them to not regress in the way that they did. Mm-hmm. But even if we're talking about regression as an above 500 a bowl game season at Wake Forest, then Dave Clawson's always obviously doing something right.
Exactly. And I think that'll take us into next week, where I haven't really completely looked at the slate yet, but that's week 11. So we have some pretty good ones. Everybody plays in conference, and I think Clemson, Louisville is probably the headliner. NC State, Wake, those are always fun games. And
UNC Wake, you mean?
I'm sorry. Yeah, UNC Wake. UNC Wake. Those are always fun games. I'm really looking forward to that one, and we will be out with that one later this week. We'll record Wednesday and release it Thursday morning. Thank you guys for listening and watching this ACC Takeover podcast. Be sure to support us by giving us a like on this episode, and be sure to support the entire Takeover Sports Network by subscribing. It helps us all out. It is completely free. So appreciate you guys. Please do that. And once again, thanks for watching and listening, and take care.